What is your reference point? What does your generation mean to you? Everybody has a story, regardless of your generation.
Imagine that you are passing through a tunnel. The tunnel is always dark, at least in most of the places or in most of the situation. When you are in the tunnel, you don't know what is going to be in the other part of it. Sometimes you look at that is the end of life. Only that it is not the end of life, but you don't know. What if after you pass through the tunnel, you have the experience, you know what is inside the tunnel? You can write your experiences, letting the people know what is in the tunnel. The difference this will make is that the new people that are entering into the tunnel, based on the knowledge that they've gotten thanks to you, because you have passed through the tunnel, therefore you are a pioneer. Those who are starting, those who are making the way, those who are showing the way, they will pass through that tunnel in a different kind of light.
When you talk about the KFC story, when you look at the Apple story, when you look at the Google story, when you look at the Caribbean stories, when you look at those foundations, and the African stories are born out of great pain and resilience and overcoming and survival. Your pain, your greatest pain becomes the foundation of your stories. Because it is from that pain that your purpose and your ministry is usually born.
Imagine that you are passing through a tunnel. The tunnel is always dark, at least in most of the places or in most of the situation. When you are in the tunnel, you don't know what is going to be in the other part of it. Sometimes you look at that is the end of life. Only that it is not the end of life, but you don't know. What if after you pass through the tunnel, you have the experience, you know what is inside the tunnel? You can write your experiences, letting the people know what is in the tunnel. The difference this will make is that the new people that are entering into the tunnel, based on the knowledge that they've gotten thanks to you, because you have passed through the tunnel, therefore you are a pioneer. Those who are starting, those who are making the way, those who are showing the way, they will pass through that tunnel in a different kind of light. But what if you never tell them? They will enter not knowing, they are blind, not knowing they don't know what is going to happen in the tunnel. So going back to what Yemi was saying before, it is fundamentally important that within the African diaspora and also in Africa, that we take the time to put down this memory. Let's share what have happened to us. It's going to help somebody out there. Storytelling, using story to shape our narrative, is fundamentally important. All right, with that, I pass the mic to Dr. Marcia. Dr. Marcia, thank you so much for being here. Of course, we are always very proud of you. So tell the people who you are and what is your first take on today's conversation, using storytelling or how to reshape our narrative through story. Please take it from here.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good night, depending on where we're from. For me, it's early morning. I want to join in welcoming all those who are with us. I see a lot of persons that are valuable to us in our discussion. I want to welcome and say how honored I am to be beside Gloria every week, and then now to have Yemi join us. And thank you always for the invitation, Obi. I think this might just be, if not my final point, I think the next point will come at the edge of my moving on. I have an appointment today and so I have to leave at 10 o'clock. I I look at the topic every time, and I look at where we are coming from and how far we have come. And I look at the journey and the joys and the sorrows and the complexities and the surprises in between, because all of those make up our stories. But that is life. Everybody has a story, regardless of your generation.
Hello and thank you for checking out this video. I'm Obehi Ewanfoh, the host of the African Diaspora Storyteller series. Every 2 weeks we meet up on LinkedIn to talk about different ways we can leverage the power of storytelling as people of African descent. Now this is it. We are uniting the millions of Africans in the diaspora through the power of our story. It does sound like what you are interested in. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and share this video with your friends who might need it. Now back to today's conversation.
The main thing for me is that those who come behind us, regardless of where we find ourselves in the generation, must find us faithful. And so reshaping our stories is extremely important for me in 3 ways. The first is, what is your reference point? Because if you don't know who you are, you will never know what you are destined to do, and how you serve will be fake, counterfeit, because you're serving from an uncertain, very stuttering, and very stagnant space, because those gaps in you must be filled for you to step and press into your purpose, which was given to you through your generational lineage and the experiences that came with you being born into this family or generation, whether by default or choice. And so we want to understand that framework. The next reference point that I want to talk about when I talk about reference point is your pain. The pain, your greatest pain, becomes the foundation of your stories, because it is from that pain that your purpose and your ministry is usually born. And when you talk about to people, when you talk about the KFC story, when you look at the Apple story, when you look at the Google story, when you look at the Caribbean stories, when you look at those foundations, and the African stories are born out of great pain and resilience and overcoming and survival. And that is the theme of the diaspora storytelling, the theme of resilience, of the growth mindset, of courage, of determination, infatigable hope. Those are themes that must be preserved as we reshape our story. So the next part that I want to look at now, what does it, as it relates to my reference point that I talk about, what does your generation mean to you? And when we look at the energy that surrounds my specific generation, what is it that is sacred enough to be preserved? The good. What is good that must be preserved? And what is bad that must be preserved, as a reference point to always look at how far we have come and be grateful and empowered to keep moving forward. Because that is the reference for me, is extremely important for us to reshape our stories. Because my mother's generation is different from my generation. But when she tells the story of why she is resolute in her core values, why she will not change this tradition, why she will not get rid of a particular artifact, make us develop and create our own artifacts from that experience and also create our own experience that is always aligned to that experience. Because, as they say in Jamaica, blood is thicker than water. And you cannot take back your mother and put her in a store to say exchange, she has expired or she's not good. She has no longer good. You can't take your grandparents back into any supermarket. You cannot take them back into God and say reshape them. You are born and you have to accept your reference point. Your reference point does not necessarily become your residence, because as generations evolve, they learn new things, they embody their own stories, they shape their own stories, they integrate the insights of the past, and they reframe their narrative and also challenge assumptions. So that is the first point. The second point for me, as it relates, so maybe someone needs to write down the reference point, because we have to have a reference point to reshape our story, because it would have had an original shape, and the shaping can be expanded, or it can be altered, or it can be adopted, or it can get a 3D dimension where you build on it is the same shape. It doesn't change in that way, but it changes in volume and impact and influence, and it changes in illumination. It is illuminated. So let's go now. So after we understand our reference point, we want to look at reframing. How do we reframe the narrative? And notice what I say, reframe, because we are not changing the narrative, we are reframing the narrative so it fits into my context, my situation, the inspiration that I need, the motives, and also the handling. What do I mean by the handling? How I carry this sacred treasure determines my mindset. So do I see the obstacles and the struggles and the challenges and the pain? Do I see them? Do they make me bitter? Do they make me ashamed? Do they make me feel less than? Do they make me always want to seek for the approval of others and want others to love me? Do I feel inadequate all the time? Because the reframing, every time I look at the narrative, the narrative affects me in that way. Or do I look at how far I've come with the same narrative and see the opportunities, the possibilities, and my take and place in making sure that the reframing of this narrative becomes positive? How do I see myself in the reframing? And as I reframe, how do I identify the story? How do I recognize what has been passed down and how it has influenced my life? How do I examine the impact on how it has the impact on my beliefs and my values and behaviors? Because reshaping stories is not just documentation. It is how we carry those stories in our spirits and how we pass on the energy of those stories into our overcoming. And so we want to understand that reframing involves a physical reframing, a mental reframing, a spiritual reframing, and an emotional reframing.